Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, I'd like to thank the Honourable Leader of Opposition for the question. I'd like to draw his attention to way back last year in 2019-2020 in the supplement to the budget address. I also refer him to page 45. This, of course, the supplement is given to all Honourable Members of Parliament, and of course it's also available on our website. Paragraph 5.7, where we talked about the global bond, it says discussions, and I quote, are in advanced stages with the Asian Development Bank, ADB, and the World Bank for the refinancing of the US $200 million global bond due in October 2020 through a policy-based operation. The funding from ADB and World Bank is based on a package of policy reform triggers in the areas of fiscal management, institutional legal framework for state-owned enterprises, and improving the private sector businher environment. Other bilateral partners have expressed interest to participate in its operation. Refinancing of the global bonds through a policy-based operation will assist in their implementation of various reforms and help reduce the cost of borrowing and minimize financing risk. Apart from this, the World Bank Board of Governors 26 May 2019 approved Fiji's inclusion as an IDA-eligible small island economy. Effectively, this means that Fiji has become a blend country, which allows it to access funding through the IDA and IBRD financing facility windows. As such, the Fijian government will be able to access around SDR 21 million, approximately Fijian 55 million, at zero interest on an annual basis with an extended repayment term of 40 years, including a 10-year grace period. This funding is vital to support the financing of our development and disaster resilience needs. Again, in the same year, in the budget estimates, I referred the Honourable Leader of Opposition to page 325 of the budget, sorry, it's up here on the top. In the footnote, Honourable Leader of Opposition, you will see it says, note on policy-based loans. The Fijian government has negotiated with the World Bank and the Asian Development Bank for loan funding up to US $200 million in order to redeem the global bond, which is due in October 2020. It is a program-based policy loan. The funds will be accessed in two tranches in financial year 2019-2020 and financial year 2020-2021 of US $100 million respectively, subject to parliamentary approvals. Then the last document I'd like to also refer the Honourable Leader of Opposition to is this year's budget in the supplement on page 26, paragraph 4.8. It talks about the higher principal repayment of $749.5 million in this year is due to the US $200 million global bond maturing in October 2020, which will be refinanced through funding already secured under policy-based budget support operation with our multilateral partners. It, of course, will be a lot better because, as I highlighted, the redeeming of the bonds takes place in October this year, so it's being refinanced. Now, the coupon rate at which it was issued was about 6%, in excess of 6%. Now, the repayment of these bonds will be done at an interest rate, because we've secured this from offshore, it's done at 1.75% with a spread of 0.5% LIBOR rates. Essentially means you're looking at about maximum 1.5, 1.2%, if that. And of course, as you know, as part of that, we're getting some IDA funds too. So the cost of those funds, although we've got a high injection of funds this year, that's why we've got a higher rate, as I mentioned and read out in the supplement, the cost of that is much lower because it's like paying in excess of 6% for the 200 million, now it's being financed at less than 2%. That's the difference. So obviously, we're saving quite a lot of money because we managed over the past couple of years, we managed to, in fact, put up all these policy-based measures, which has been we've been able to secure this funding. The other interesting point is, as I highlighted also in the budget address, is that last year we had already parked $100 million offshore. Now, the additional funding that we're getting now has actually not been brought into the country for the $200 million, which means we are not subject to foreign currency fluctuations. If assuming we had brought in the $100 million US last year, brought it to Fiji, and then we had to take it out again, obviously we would have been subject to the foreign currency fluctuations. And thank God we actually did do that because we've been prudent about it. As we've been saying, we're prudent managers of finance. Because the US dollar actually has dropped. So the cost of actually taking the funds out, if we had brought it in, would have been a lot more. So as a result of that, we've actually done quite well from that perspective. First, not bringing it offshore, onshore, sorry, keeping it offshore. And secondly, that we had already had it in the sinking fund offshore. The other aspect, of course, is that the ADB gave us an additional $100 million, announced it in the budget, which is going to be put into the economy now, which gives us the foreign reserves and pumps liquidity into the market also. Mr. Speaker, so as highlighted in the budget, we obviously still are generating revenue, but our ability to generate revenue is quite significantly diminished because of the lack of economic activity, in particular from the tourism sector. But as highlighted in the budget, our estimates have been extremely conservative in terms of our revenue generation. And in the budget, Honourable Leader of Opposition, if you look at the budget, you'll see that we have the capacity to be able to repay our loans, because obviously we've never defaulted on our loans, nor do we intend to default on our loans. Honourable Randondro opposes the blue lanes. We actually want the blue lanes because we're generating economic activity. So these yachts that are coming in, it's providing jobs. They're going out, they're buying things. It creates VAT revenue for us. They're paying ECAL. I've just got a phone call from one of the resorts in the Mamanudas that because these yachts are here, they're going to organize a regatta amongst the Mamanudas, in between the islands in Mamanudas, that obviously generates economic activity. They go out and buy goods and services. Then people will be hired for that. That's the type of financing, obviously, that will generate government revenue for us, and we'll be able to then fund these loans that we have. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. We'll move on to the next